Welcome to the review of episode 176 of the All In podcast. Today is going to be a fantastic one. The first topic for this week is massive disruption in the AI space. Meta has launched Llama 3 and it is open source. Man, this is a big change from what's been happening. OpenAI went from open source to closed source. Everyone's going out and building these amazing LLMs, but Meta has come out with theirs and is giving it basically away for free. This is essentially a scorched earth tactic where you're going to basically burn everything else down. Nobody else is going to be able to make money anymore from these base models. The only money to be made is going to be in using them. So why did Meta go with this particular tactic? Well, they need to catch up. They're behind everybody else, and it may affect their core business being social media, social networks, and that's where they make their money. AI is a potential to disrupt that. So what they're doing is to catch up. Man, they're pumping a lot of money into this, basically making all the models free, and that is going to disrupt Google, AI, Microsoft, all these other guys. Be interesting to see how they respond. Google is famous for using this tactic to catch up in the mobile space. They didn't have a mobile phone. Everything was going onto mobile apps. And so what did they do? They built Android and made it open source. So the developers could go ahead and build whatever they like on the system. And that helped them to catch up in the mobile space. Why? So they could protect their core business, which was search. They're making all the money from search, and there's this new thing coming out called mobile. They had to protect their business, so they basically made it open source and free. And this is what Meta is doing today to be able to catch up in the AI space and protect themselves in social media networks. However, Meta's share price has plunged since the announcement of all this extra spending in AI. How can this be? They've really got an opportunity now to grab more of the search market space with what they're doing. They've included this into WhatsApp, into Instagram, into Facebook. So now, hey, maybe you don't even need to leave those apps to go and search. You can just do it directly inside Meta's tools. They could grab a big part of the search market. So why is their share price dropped? Well, the argument was that they're investing in the wrong things. Buying so many of these H100s from NVIDIA, they're spending hundreds of billions building capabilities to build models only to sell them for free. So investing a huge amount and then just burning that investment in order to make it difficult for the others to compete. So not sure what's going on there. They're saying much more should be spent on inference and on other layers above the AI model now to be able to use that more effectively. Personally, I think Zuck is making a big bet here. Maybe like VR, he's going to keep doing this. He's going to keep trying things. And this may be a mistake again, but there's something incredibly powerful about having all of this psychographic information that Meta has inside Facebook and Instagram about how it's people thinking, what they like, plus what Google's always had, which is this intent information. I know what people are looking for, so I can serve ads to them. Put those two massive data sets together and package it inside an LLM. Wow, I can just imagine now how powerful marketing and advertising could be inside these platforms where people spend so much of their time. I'm not going to keep getting dumb ads from Facebook, which I ignore anyway. Maybe they'll be more intelligent. Maybe they'll be tailored to me. There's some really, really powerful stuff, I think, happening in this space. If I was Google, I would be scared. The second topic was robo-taxis. And man, I hope they look this cool, but they probably won't. This is potentially a gigantic market in which nobody needs to own a car anymore. You just pay for a service, and there's companies which kind of own these vehicles. And this is what's interesting, is who's going to play a role in this space. Today, it looks like, firstly, ride-hailing apps like Uber and Lyft. They've built a global network, and people are using them to call cars anyway. Then there are companies looking at the technology to help OEMs, the companies like Ford and Toyota, to help develop their own full self-driving cars, get them on the road. Companies like Waymo and Cruise. And then you have the big gorilla, Tesla, right, who's actually building their own full self-driving car and probably a service to be able to do everything and dominate this entire space. In the discussion, they talked about how Tesla's share price has suddenly surged against expectations, really, that if you're reading the media and looking at the global trends, why has Tesla jumped up? And one of the reasons could be because of their ability to dominate in the self-driving space. And this chart shows the reason why Tesla is likely to win. For full self-driving, you need this level 5 autonomy. And Tesla believes they need 6 billion hours of driving and inputs in order to be able to use all that video and inputs and the corrections that drivers make in order to produce a full self-driving vehicle. They're already hitting 1 billion miles. And if you look at the trajectory, it is going to get to 6 billion pretty soon. And nobody else has as many cars and as many recording devices out there and as many people giving feedback and input in order to be able to improve this model. So it's very likely that Tesla is going to crush it and win this game. And maybe nobody else will be able to produce a full self-driving car at all. Now, once they've got the capability to control a machine in the real world, like a car, clearly this is what is needed in order to make robots like Optimus Prime successful. They've got the production line to be able to build thousands of these things, and they've got the systems to be able to make these robots effective in the world. This is also another huge market in which Tesla is going to be going into pretty soon. Now, think about it. This could be the case that every person has their own personal robot that they're paying a few $100s a month for and is doing an incredible amount of work for them. Reminds you of something in the past, right? Indeed, this is reminiscent of Bill Gates saying, I want to put a microcomputer onto every desk in every home in the world. And at that time, it sounded crazy. Why would you need such a thing? Well, today, it is completely ubiquitous and it's probable that this is going to happen in the world of robots as well. Topic number 3. So this one is about the US government banning non-compete agreements with employees. This is quite a big bombshell. About 18% of US employees have some kind of non-compete. And the argument for removing them is that non-competes are really unfair because an employee sits there stuck in their job, could only go to the competitor, but now can't. It's prevented and is stuck in prison in this job. Generally, the guys on the pod all tend to agree with this, saying that non-competes really don't make sense. They've been illegal anyway in California for some time. And hey, look, Silicon Valley's done a great job of innovating despite people moving between companies. However, I think that is actually at the root of this problem, is that this applies very well in the software space where things are moving very rapidly, and the knowledge that somebody has learned at a particular company is difficult to apply and also not valuable for very long in other contexts. To take a leaf here from one of Peter Thiel's books, 0 to 1, he talks about the fact that if you're going to start a business and make it really big, you need to know something that other people don't. You need to know something that's true that they don't. So in the world in today, which is really a knowledge economy, how are you going to build a competitive advantage if your key employees who've got all the confidential information and access to all of this secret information could immediately move across to your competitors and start using that to compete against you? An additional comment from David Sachs, which I want to jump on here, is saying, well, if knowledge is really your only competitive moat, you need to think about building others. You need to have other big competitive moats in order to survive. And I think that is great if you're a big company and incumbent and you've got lots of other things to help your business survive. I've been a small player, and I've had big competitors who wanted to steal my employees and my knowledge because we were beating them in certain areas, and they wanted essentially to buy that knowledge. And they could. With big money, they could throw it at it and crush my business. So I think this is a thing that's actually going to help big companies to be able to crush their small competitors as soon as those competitors have any kind of knowledge that is currently sitting in the heads of their employees. Topic number 4, Washington has decided to ban TikTok, as well as slipping in there another $100 billion for various wars in Ukraine, Israel, and as well as helping a small island of Taiwan. And that's not all. They also included the ability to be able to spy on American citizens without any warrant. Hooray! Lovely bill. Clearly driven by the security apparatus in the United States. These are all the things that they would like. Firstly, TikTok is all about China spying on kids in America who are watching these videos, and their wars, and obviously Ukraine. If we don't support Ukraine, then Putin is going to take over the whole of Europe. If we don't support Israel, Iran is going to own the world. And if you don't spy on Americans, then I don't know, there'll be terrorism all over the place. This is a very, very strange package, I must say. A very realistic fear here is that the way the bill is being written, especially for TikTok, just basically says any foreign-owned app could be investigated and could be forced to divest, could be forced to shut down. And so the idea is here, well, maybe this is going to be applied to others, like Telegram. It's owned by a Russian, has a very uncertain background to it, and maybe even companies like X. If they become unpopular with the security agencies of the United States, it could well be that this bill is used to beat them over the head. At this point, Jason had to put his glasses on probably to read something in more detail to understand what he's talking about here. I wish he'd gone into a bit more detail what they discussed before, which is why don't the handset makers just bring out a better control over when the microphone can be turned on, like have a flashing thing forcing you to know that, hey, somebody's listening to you through your phone. There are so many ways to easily stop this kind of spying. Why go and ban a whole product which is actually used by over 170 million users in the United States? So that's a very interesting one. And also, why not in Ukraine just agree a peace deal? And sorry, we're going to have to give up some land, but that will stop Putin. And in Israel, let's just deal with these problems. Throwing more money at weapons and heightening the threats is not going to solve these problems. Well, we're on to topic number 5, the really exciting topic of tax. Last week, we discussed tax as well, around how unrealized capital gains are going to be brought forward. Now you're also going to pay a much higher tax rate, up to 45%, the highest ever in the history of the United States. The proposal is targeted at people who have a lot of wealth, but it is essentially going to wipe out a lot of guys who have companies who are growing these businesses. Why? Because as your business grows and its value increases, you're going to pay the capital gains, not when you sell the company, but now you pay the tax as your company growth is increasing. But you don't have the money in the bank account to do that. So what are people going to have to do? They are going to actually have to sell their company, sell pieces of it, give 45% of that to the government, use the remainder to buy or to pay off the taxes of the unrealized portion. But that could end up making people sell over half of their business just to pay the tax. And there's no guarantee that the company will be successful in the long term. So this is an insane bill. It really, hopefully, will never be implemented. But this is really about the elections. Coming up towards the end of this year in the United States, there's a very big election taking place. And whoever says, hey, I'm going to tax the rich is going to get a lot of popular support. But this is a difficult question for people to answer, as illustrated by this tweet. Hey, I don't like to get into politics, but this, I think, is a real problem for Democrats. They're either going to vote for somebody, if they're fairly wealthy, who's going to tax them like crazy, or they're going to have to vote for crazy orange man. Not an easy decision. Well, that's the end of the review, guys. Today's bestie of the week is David Sachs for trolling Jason, calling out his bribing of maitre d's at restaurants, saying that he's probably going to have to vote for Trump. He doesn't have to put on the MAGA hat, but getting him actually to expose that he's probably going to vote for RFK. The worst contribution of the week, unfortunately, goes to David Friedberg. Before I get to it, his background this week is Super Mario Brothers. And I cannot see how it relates to any of the topics today, but he always has some cool thing in the background. He wins the award for this page where it says 77% of Americans would like to tax billionaires more so that they can save Social Security. I mean, why is it only 77%? Surely everybody should want that except those billionaires. Anyway, this is an argument saying that, well, it's going to be a populist thing that people are going to want to tax the rich more. But this kind of analysis is very weak. Today's best commentary comes from Chamath, where he talks about the unexpected changes in share prices of Meta, which people thought was going to go up, but actually went down. Chamath has got a brilliant analysis of this. Thanks so much for watching. Like, subscribe. See you next week.
A few times a quarter, where you can really see the dispersion in the stock market between what I would call the smart money and everybody else. So, using betting language, the sharps and the squares. And I think Meta was an example of the sharps taking a line, which I think is very accurate. And Tesla was the other great example this quarter. And so if you look inside of Meta, and this Friedberg mentioned this earlier, I think Friedberg, what people really reacted negatively to was the total quantum of spending and the idea that it's misallocated, not to AI, but specifically to NVIDIA. And the reason is that, and we've mentioned this before, I've tried to talk a lot about this with Jonathan Ross from Grok, but AI is really two markets, training and inference. And inference is going to be 100 times bigger than training. And NVIDIA is really good at training and very miscast at inference. The problem is that right now we need to see a CapEx build cycle for inference. And there are so many cheap and effective solutions. Grok being one of them, but there are many others. And I think why the market reacted very negatively was it did not seem that Facebook understood that distinction. That they were way overspending and trying to allocate a bunch of GPU capacity towards inference that didn't make sense. And so I think what people were saying is, hold on a second. So far, your plays are perfect. It's everything we want you to do. We want you to scorch the earth. We want you to open source the headset. But we also want you to understand the difference between training and inference in a little bit more of a nuanced way. Build up the inference capacity, but spend a lot less money because you don't need to spend it on NVIDIA.